Monday, I'm going to be doing something a little different here. I'm doing an experiment, and I want you to tell me how this makes you feel. I'm doing something a little different with this. I call this tune Prayer Without Ceasing.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Okay, so that was it. And we have Roy Wooten joining us. Hey, Roy. You
Hey.
you are the one who really brought it to my attention that the difference that A432 makes and all the aspects about it. But I was just wondering if anyone guessed that's what I was doing in that piece. I just tuned the guitar down to A432, and that's just
Ah.
a, like a third of a step, a third of between those two notes. And I figured out it was about 32 cents. I noticed that when I tuned my guitar down 32 cents, that A came down, that was 440, came down to A 432.
Mm-hmm.
So that was easy to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Mhm.
I now have a tuner on this that can tune it really precise to 430, 432. And let's listen to it in 440 just to get a
Yeah,
complete
and
feel.
Muriel, just to preface even before you play it, I
Yeah.
think that getting into the science of tuning is like just in your mind thinking about how every time you see an orchestra, the instruments are somewhat in tune, but they take the time to make sure that they all agree on the pitch that they're going to play at. Because if they're all off, things are going to be a little bit sour. So thinking about the universe and the order of things having a reason for pitches and frequencies to do what they do, a lot of times we might not be able to hear the difference with we
We could feel it.
might not be able to perceive is the mystery of vibration. It takes on a lot of different characteristics. And so like if you hit a vibration with water, it'll make patterns so that you can now see what the sound is doing. You see what I'm saying? So after a while, the whole phenomenon of sound becomes light and color that you see with your eyes. And I think we're talking about this this kind of architectural creative creation, expression in the universe, and it's just a fascinating subject. And so our ears may be able to feel the subtle difference when you play between these different tunings, but you might not be able to actually hear um the difference, even though there is slightly a difference. So anyway, I just wanted to preface it saying that tuning is a precise art, and every orchestra takes a lot of time to tune up before they start playing. Because if they start playing and they don't tune up, everybody's going to be on their own thing, and it's going to be a little out of control. It's going to be sour, You will hear that.
You bet. You bet.
Right. So this is a subject we're sort of tapping into this subject now. Right.
Yeah, but you know the difference between 440 and 432 is subtle for most people, really subtle, and it has more to do with how it makes you feel than what you
Yes.
hear. What you hear is really,
Yes.
really similar, but somehow I'd noticed when I uh, played in 432 for a concert, I would see people's shoulders just fall back like that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I changed that, I get that they just kind of, there's just a little bit
Yeah.
of relaxation that goes on with
Yeah,
that.
it's very sublime. When I really started to get it, I have a orchestral program like Sibelius and Finale, but I use Notion Music, and in there I can change the tuning of the instruments. So I'm listening to whole orchestrations, whole symphonies, mallets, xylophones, chimes, everything, the whole orchestra tuned to A432, which is something not that easy to do now because chimes and xylophones and all this stuff is tuned to A440. It's hard to get a custom set of tuned percussion instruments to go there. So with samples, I can hear this, right? So
Yeah,
I have a recreation of George Lucas Star Wars. Boom, 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 ba, ba, ba,
yeah,
ba, 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 ba. And when I play it A432, it's like a little too calm. It doesn't have that fighting edge. Like,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, 432 was settled and it was like calm and
yeah,
it needed that angst, but A440 had that angst and that
yeah,
edge. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay. So therefore, for me, it was like you might see a composer in the future using different tunings to induce tension,
yeah.
or to induce
Well,
relaxation. Like you said, you saw
yeah.
people go, ah, mhm.
Roy, speaking of
Yeah.
inducing tension, you're a little too close to your mic because you're
Oh,
way
okay. One,
louder than
two.
me. So if you just want to back up, like, I'm pretty far
Okay.
from my
Is
mic.
this
There we
better
go.
here?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
better
great.
there. So
Yeah.
thanks. And
All right.
yeah,
Good,
but
good, good.
it's uh, there's something that's I would kind of like to see what people are feeling here. If
Yeah.
Tom Hankinson says, "Yeah, prayer without ceasing," he recognized that tune, and yes, that was the tune, and an appropriate tune. I wrote that just as a prayer on the guitar, but 432 was historically the tuning that was used for monks when they would do meditations, and so proper the proper pitch for monks. This was back time of Christ. That was that was considered the meditation frequency,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
the standard frequency for years and years. From I hear that lots of cultures, not just Western cultures, lots of cultures found that frequency and made that kind of the basis of their music. But let's
Yeah.
see if we have some other comments coming in, and I'll play a little bit tuned to A432. Sorry, up to 440. I pre-recorded it so you'd get a good sound quality without the possible digital interface here. And let's listen to the same thing at 440, and then we'll pop back to 432. Here's the first part of that tune again. Now I'll tune up to 440. That was 432. 440. Okay, so that's fourth. 440. I think I might have gone back to 432 at this time. Back to 432. Yeah. Okay, so very subtle in the pitch, but just wanted to know if people, you know, can catch that. I know that it's way different live than it is, gone through hundreds of miles of internet fiber. And there's something to be said about live music. Uh, but I'm just curious if people are feeling that difference. Fred says he's familiar with it. And he sometimes falls asleep to 432.
Nice.
And I had actually started recording that tune and several others at 432. Tom was asking about my Nightlight Daylight CD. I had recorded 5 or 6 songs at 432. I was going to do the whole album there. And then I realized that that people did playlists, and so they played one tune and then something from another's album. That's one tune, something from another person's album, and the things at 432 sounded a little flat in comparison, and that's. So I went and I re-recorded everything at 440 just so it would be consistent. But I am thinking about maybe another project where I kind of specify you have to live with it for a while, stay with that 432 for a while, and so it doesn't feel flat in relation to other things, and see if it's not more relaxing and more healing, as a frequency. So have you? I know you were the one who brought that to my attention, as I mentioned, Roy, when we were in the composers score study group together, and
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yes.
you had really done some research on that, and I think it was Pythagoras back at like 500 BC who discovered some of these mathematical relationships that only happened at
Yeah.
432. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Like 432 is very poetic. Like, and you'll see the numbers show up in a lot of different ways. Derivatives. That number, half of 432 is 216. Half of 216 is 108. And you'll see these numbers show up in spiritual text. 432 bodhisattvas, this kind of thing. And something to consider is like 432 is a number. When you multiply the number by itself, 432 times 432. Like if I
That's
do
a
it on
big
my
number.
huh?
432. That's a
It's
big
a
number.
big number, but
432 squared.
but
Yeah.
let's see if you recognize the number. 432
Okay.
times 432 equals, I don't know if you can see that number right there.
186.
186. Yeah.
624.
Yeah. That's the number for the speed of light.
I was gonna say, was that the speed of light? That's I was.
Yeah.
It was on the tip of my
Yeah.
brain. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the speed of light is like, again, now it's like sound has gone up into another event horizon where it's no longer sound now. It's light.
It's
And
light.
so for me, it reminds me of the
Wow.
story where the ancient people said, if you can't touch the ceiling, then measure the floor. Right? You got a tall house,
Yeah.
can't touch the ceiling, just measure the floor. So with sound,
Right.
we're observing and experiencing what these frequencies do more closer to the floor level. But the correspondence between here ascending up to the high frequencies, it seems to be some kind of like a poetic patternistic thing. And I just, for people to get the way I'm looking at it, it's like when you see a design as complex as that right there,
Yeah.
that was done by hitting a frequency. Like somebody didn't draw that out with hand. Like we're hitting a frequency that's making that order of architecture. And
Wow,
if we
it's
look at
beautiful.
that architecture, look at how nature uses these patterns too. See, here goes patterns in nature where you see these similar themes going on, you
Yeah.
know? So we're starting to see this kind of rhythmical, a rhythmical thing done in pictures. And here it's sort of looking like ancient writing. There's some kind of frequency that looks like uh, some
It
kind of
does.
ancient text or
That's
something,
really different. Yeah.
right? Like if
Yeah.
you were to try to do that by hand, no, but it's like nature is writing. Okay, and there's some of the script that they say it looks like this type of ancient
Yeah.
writing.
Wow.
So we're starting to get into what I like to talk about because playing percussion, I play drums, right? So I'm dealing with rhythm. And when you look in the world of rhythm, to me, every creation story starts with the essence of rhythm, whether they say in the beginning was the word or the song or the sound, the word, like in space and stuff, it might not be a word, but they're implying some type of vibratory phenomenon that's
Well,
turning into the stuff of the world. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's
Beautiful pattern.
probably why they call you Future Man when you play with the Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. Is
Yeah.
yeah, you look into rhythm from all its dimensions.
Yeah, all those
Yeah,
dimensions. And so,
yeah,
so much so that when I look at the word rhythm, I
yeah.
see the word rhythm hiding the word hymn in there. A hymn, HYMN, and you see that HY stuff happening there. I see the word, it's implying rhyme in the word rhythm, hymns. And also, when you come back the other way, I see the word myth. This stuff is mythic, it's epic, right? And so I see all of this. And when I say hymns, the profound thing about hymns is that all hymns are rhythmic in the sense that, like a haiku, if you heard of a haiku takes on
Yeah.
a certain rhythmic structure of 5 syllables next to 7 syllables next to 5 syllables, and it's exact. You just put your syllable beats. The syllables, are the beats in the words.
Yeah.
Syllable would be 3 beats, right? Abstract is 2 beats, right? So the fact that people are writing poems and literature in beats like this, and a lot of people are not aware that all hymns are structured specific. It's not freestyle. It's
Yeah.
very
It's rhythmic.
specific and
Yeah.
exact.
Yeah.
And the common meter of a hymn is 8 syllables that sits next to 6 syllables. A lot of people don't even know that, right? But a lot of people know the famous hymns. There's a famous hymn, Amazing Grace. And a lot of people know the hymn, but they don't know the structure. Amazing Grace. Everybody knows Amazing Grace, but the structure is 8 syllables that sits next to 6 syllables. So watch
Uh,
this.
yeah.
Um, Go ahead. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. There's 8 syllables.
Right.
Now, then here's the response. That saved a wretch like me. I once
There's your.
was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. It's exact. It's not freestyling.
Yeah. A lot
'Twas
of them do
grace
that.
that taught my heart to fear, and
Hmm.
grace my fears relieve. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. So this rhythmical writing, I will not eat green eggs and ham. I will not eat them, Sam. I am. And as long as Dr. Seuss speaks like this, he can talk nonsense.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
Rhythmical writing has been a thing. Yeah. Go ahead.
Kevin Kevin says that rhythm brings people together. He was saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And Mozart said that it's in music and rhythm, a lot of people can talk at the same time. Whereas in regular talking, it'll be chaos. But in music and rhythm, you can structure where everyone is sort of talking at the same time, and it creates this orchestral statement tapestry. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
So you know what? I tried to. I can't see the chat,
Oh,
and
you can see it. It's on the side here. Well, Fred is saying he's commenting on your designs. Uh, oh, I'm
yes,
getting a little echo. Can you
from
turn
me.
your yeah from you? Can you turn your mic speaker down a little?
Oh, is it
Yeah,
from the?
yeah,
Oh, you know
yeah.
what? Let
The
me
mic,
let me.
mic is close, or close. Turn the mic down either way. Yeah, yeah,
Maybe if I go into headphones, let's
yeah.
see
Anyway, Fred was saying
setting.
that when water's exposed to A at 432 and 528, the geometric cell patterns are produced. So there's something the way water responds to that as well. And also, I've heard that the organs in our body responds to that. And I think it was back in 1600 that they discovered that uh, in I think it was in
Yeah,
astronomy. They consider astronomy had a lot of the same relationships as
yeah.
musical harmony, and so I think it was Kepler back in the 1600s. So had
Mm-hmm.
discovered that. So there's tie-ins between all these things: astronomy and cells, uh, and then let's see, Rob had also
Yeah, yeah. There's
said, yeah,
a
or Neil had said that the flowers are laid out with these mathematical patterns, and
yeah.
and so the question is, uh, why were we at 432 for so long, and why did we go to A440?
Uh-huh. Well, see, this is
Yeah,
interesting. This as I dug into. Are you hearing me better now? Is it
yes,
echoing?
you're better now. Thanks.
Okay. It's funny that when I first started learning about tuning, I remember there was a politician named Lyndon LaRouche,
Mm-hmm.
a very controversial guy, and but they were just really concerned about tuning. And I was wondering why was it that political leaders knew more about tuning than I did, and were fighting over it. And the more,
Well, it was
and then
political
when,
back in the day.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And as we look through history, we find that temperament and tuning has always been like change. It's always been controversial. Even when Bach is going to go to equal temperament, you're going to change the tuning.
Well,
It's
Bach didn't.
always been,
He went to well temperament first. So
uh,
yeah, and that wasn't quite equal temperament, and every song was a little bit different. Uh,
yeah,
and I studied it in college. I started out as a double major in acoustics and guitar because I was so interested in this.
yeah,
And
yeah.
one of my teachers had created an instrument that he could very precisely tune, and he tuned it to the well temperament of Bach's time, which was getting closer to that. But each key had a different flavor to it. So the
Yes.
C major was more major sounding than our C major, and the A
Ah,
minor was more spooky sounding than, and the songs that Bach wrote went with that temperament. So they had,
ah,
yeah, and so they're not the same as the way we play them now in equal temperament. So
I
he
would love
chose
to
those
see what
tunes.
those.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to look at that. I want to really see what those frequencies are.
but that was a great
Yeah.
transition. Bach's time, he was a great proponent of, you know, having those change. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. This is such a subject. It's an exquisite subject, and a lot of times I just always use pictures to just help get the imagination to what we're talking about. So
yeah,
here's a picture right here, and in this picture is a picture of like Mother Mary and the baby Jesus, right? And
yeah.
you might not be able to see it, but surrounding them is all angels, right? All that busyness around there are angels, and each
Ah,
one of those angels is playing a different instrument, right?
yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to see if you might be able to pick out something. But the baby in the middle is holding rattles.
Yes.
So you can see that some kind of way they're getting into the frequency nature of I guess the world, the universe, or something. But there's all kinds of interests. There's people beating drums, playing instruments, you know, and then the baby's shaking rattles, you
Well,
know.
let me play one more in A4 32. It'll take me a
Yeah,
minute to tune up. So,
yeah,
but yeah, that so many parallels here.
yeah.
I'll do
It's
it.
a
It
fun
never gets
subject.
easier.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not going to get quite the sound quality you had before, This is low tech, but I'll play a little bit of It Never Gets Easier.
Yes. And while you're playing, I'm just like showing some of these images. Somebody mentioned water. This is
Oh yeah.
water responding to frequency. You know, pictures worth 1,000 words. So we're talking about a subject that we might not even have enough words to really capture what's going on, but that's water just responding to these frequencies. And so this whole idea that when we're listening to some type of order and communication that exists on levels that's beyond what we're just hearing, you know.
Yeah, and you know my
It's
guitar
fun.
was built. My guitar was built for 440 tuning, but somehow when I turn it down to 432, it feels more resonant to me.
Yeah, I think we're starting to tap into something, you know. And for me now, to me, this subject, I'd like people to consider this subject, right? I feel like when we see these shapes like that, these are all symbols. So what we have is frequencies that also make symbols, not just sound, right? So music is also called the universal language, right? And I'm
Yeah.
saying, what if it literally is spelling words? Words are made out of symbols, right? Chinese, they got symbols. Every language has the symbols for their language. And what if, when you hit frequencies, they're making the symbols? Like, what if this is more an alphabet? What if this is more alphabet? Like each one of these is a letter. Each one of these is a different frequency.
Huh.
And what if this is an alphabet of some kind?
Yeah.
And now we're like Champollion standing before a Rosetta Stone, trying to understand how this language works.
Yeah.
See what I'm
Well,
saying?
yeah. Neil was talking about the fractal relationships that are
Yes.
in uh, in music and so many others in nature in general. So
Yes.
those
Yes.
mathematical relationships that turn into beautiful designs like that.
Yeah.
And
And so for people, yeah, go on.
Judy
Uh-huh.
is Judy is asking what book that is that you're using.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to let people know this is called Water and Sound Image
Uh-huh.
by Alexander Lauterwasser. And so it related to somebody mentioned about water, right? The creative music of the universe. And it's
Yes.
just got all of these images. And what's interesting is like some of these images end up looking like living features that we see in animals and turtles and zebras and life forms, that exist out there, right? Like turtle
Yes.
shells and stuff. We're seeing living principles. And if anyone's interested in this whole frequency phenomenon, one of the main guys that kind of got into this is a guy named Hans Jenny. Hans, like Hans Christian Andersen, Hans Jenny, Jenny. And he just really he has a lot of research into this whole phenomenon where you hit a sound and flower pollen starts taking on these dances and shapes. And he says, when you hit one frequency, it'll make a pattern. Then they started hitting two frequencies and the pattern would start undulating, looking like caterpillars and stuff, you know? And this is a subject I could go on and on with because I got a chance to be at a lecture of a guy who was showing when they would hit certain frequencies, it would start to make a human face form. You see a mouth and nose out of a certain set of frequencies. I was like, okay, this is getting really interesting here, you know.
Oh yeah.
So
And
yeah,
yes,
it
we
just
have.
yeah. So they talk about how music can soothe the savage beast and stuff like that, and it feels like they're talking about like a larger world. And you could go to YouTube and just look at all the YouTubes of people playing music and animals responding to music. It's
Yeah.
not always
Well,
tuned to A432, but the fact that they respond to it.
right.
Yeah.
And the Schiller
Hmm.
Institute, I just heard, has been trying to promote going back to A432, and I think that's going to be hard to do. We have everything now calibrated to 440. We've got all the recordings done at that, but it was 432 up until 1940, right?
Yeah,
That's really,
this is the
really recent.
Nazi this is
Yeah,
Nazi Germany time. See,
that's right.
we're talking Star Wars now. You know what I mean? Like people gonna
Uh,
change the world, right? And
well,
and governments are interested in music more than we are, almost. You know what I mean? As far as like how does it affect people and this kind of thing. So yeah,
well,
go on.
yeah, and well, Verdi, they used to call 432 the Verdi A because he was a big proponent because the opera singers could sing much more easily. It was much easier on their voice
Yes,
at that. And their tuning in Italy at that time was only 435 and the French were
yes,
doing 432. So there's not even that much
yeah.
difference, but
Right.
Verdi insisted on 432 and it was so it was the standard in Europe for quite a long time
Yes,
until a German
yes.
physicist did some experiments using 440. It wasn't even
Mm-hmm.
music that he was doing. He was doing these different
Mm-hmm.
experiments, and so he was this. I looked him up. Schubler was the guy who did the experiments in the end of the 1800s,
Uh
and
huh.
there's some supposition whether some of those experiments were looking into uh, sound, weaponized sound for warfare.
There now we're starting to get into the subject.
Yeah, because it makes people more agitated.
Right.
So
Now
they
we're
found
starting to
that
get into the
440 makes people
subject.
more agitated, 432 makes people more calm.
Yes,
So,
yes,
um,
yes. Now we're starting to
yeah.
get into a wide conversation here. This is a part two,
Okay, part
right?
two.
Because again, like I go out of the country. We just toured Australia, and I come back, and I'm listening to the news, man. And every day, every other day, there's a mass shooting. Like there's like the idea that you can be in a tension field and not even know it. You know?
Well, I mean, building since 1940, but there's so many other aspects to it, not simply the way we listen to our music.
I think
Um,
so. Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
uh, but
yeah.
it's one thing. So I'm just thinking about maybe going back and leaving my guitar in 432 for the week, for a week or two,
There you go. There you
seeing how I
go.
feel. And
Yeah.
there's actually an app that you can get where you can transpose your music that you're listening to down to 432.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. I do a string camp, and for like one day or something, we started the whole day. Everybody tuned their violins and stuff to A432, and it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but those instruments are used to this, and then all of a sudden, there's a whole big psyche shift that goes to like go to this other place, you know. So it's a very interesting, fun thing to look at, I think. And when you mentioned about opera singers, that's when I mentioned Lyndon LaRouche. When I first started learning about tuning, I was like, why is it these politicians are so into tuning more than I am? You know what I mean? I'm a musician, and we got politicians that are they're into it heavier. And what they were trying to do during that time, back in the '80s, I think it was, is there was a lot of opera singers trying to get the tuning to go back because the a lower tuning fit the change their voices lasted longer,
Yeah.
like where the falsetto and stuff would go was oriented to 432, and so um it's just an interesting subject. But I'll leave people with a thought too before we get off, is that if you look at how many seconds there are in a day, it's like there's 12 hours divided by 60 seconds in a minute. But anyway, it ends up being there's 432,000 seconds in the first half of the day and 432,000 seconds to midnight. So it seems like we're in sort of some kind of processional thing where 432 has been observed.
Wow.
And that implies that there's a reason that the second and the minutes have been, placed the way they've been placed since ancient times, for us to sort of orient and frame ourselves in some kind of, I would say, cosmic hymn, that we're a part of.
But of all the frequencies, Rick is asking, are there other frequencies that have been existent over the years? Well, we just mentioned in
Yes.
Italy, 435 was one that was used,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and Scott
Yeah.
says 440 was recommended by ISO in 1953, ignored by many orchestras at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah. What was
Able
the
to play
year?
is
Was
1953.
that?
Uh, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
19. Let's see, 1953. It was recommended by ISO,
Uh
and
huh.
it was adopted in America in 1940, and it was adopted in the world in 1956. That's
Right.
that's
Right.
like getting really close to the present. I mean, in
Yeah, and it's very interesting too because I read that I think it was Goebbels. He was the marketing guy for Hitler. That he
yeah,
was from a family of bell makers, and so they
yeah,
created the tuners, the A440 tuners, and they went all around the world, and that became the standard. So a piano tuner was saying he actually agreed with A432, but he said it's going to take a revolution to try to get a tuning to change from A440 because it's been locked in
it's
because
been
of the
locked in. Yeah,
tuners. See what I'm saying? And even like I've wanted to do something revolutionary, like have a company make me xylophones and chimes and marimba and
yeah,
percussion that's tuned to A432 and not A440, just to mark the difference. Just because, as a point of uniqueness and maybe something highly significant at the same time. So I'm just saying that's how much of a revolutionary act it is to try to even play an A432. The orchestra can't
yeah,
even really do it because the
yeah,
percussionist tune is locked. And that's what a
yeah.
piano tuner was saying. This has been locked. And I just think that when you get into Nazi Germany, they were really interested in tuning. More. It's just interesting that political people are more interested in it than musicians. We just give me the tuner,
Well,
and
I tell you,
we got
yeah, yeah.
go
Sorry.
on.
I became interested in it when I was, maybe 12 or 13, and I was helping my parents clean out an old four-car garage that our relatives had kept things in generations for generations, and I found two tuning forks, and one said A438, and one's an
Ah.
A437.5. Point five,
Oh.
right? And I said, "What is this?" And
Yeah.
my mother said that, orchestras used to tune differently. And so I
Wow.
didn't have a clue until then. And so I think I'd kind of kept that germ. And I think that's what got me interested in physics and acoustics, and why I started
Yes.
going down that rabbit hole. I didn't get very far. I got a couple of comments from France here that I couldn't make out because my math skills aren't that good. But I think the most
Yeah.
amazing thing to me, Roy, is what you just said, that 432 squared is the speed of light. I mean,
Yeah.
wow.
Think
If
about that for a
that's
minute.
not numbers, that's something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you think about that for a minute. It goes
yeah.
on and on. Yeah. Uh, what a fascinating subject. Yeah, everything about it is really a fascinating subject, and that music is steeped right in the center of it. You know what we think of as music, and for me, music is like like in science where Einstein, they're all looking for a unified field theory.
Hmm.
What is a theory where everything goes together, right? And I believe that music is centered in that, and the symbols of music give you the clue because the bass clef is really the Nautilus shell,
Oh
right? The
yeah,
bass clef
right.
is the same shape as your ear. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same shape, right? And that's the Nautilus shell. It's the same shape as an ocean wave where you sail it out. This is a universal thing. When you put it straight down, it's the same path that a tornado takes. This is a very principled thing, right? And when we're looking at Pro Tools and stuff like that, and we see the waves look like zigzag, they're really spiraling. So we're looking at this spiraling, spiritual, undulating thing, and that music seemed to be steeped right in it. I saw these lecturers, and they were saying how, like, when you're playing your guitar and violinists are playing their violins, you're actually creating scalar waves. You're creating scalar wave bubbles that are going on
Yeah.
around the sonic field. There's more going on than meets the eye and that meets the ear, and so this becomes a very fascinating uh,
Fascinating
rabbit
thing.
hole.
Yeah. Well, Tom corrected us in that it's not exactly the speed of light, but it's pretty close. So,
Yeah, it's close enough. I
yeah,
mean, I'm just
yeah.
saying, because do we know what exactly is? The number that they give
We
us
got
might
it.
not be exact.
We got it pretty
you
close, I
know,
think. We got it.
right,
Yeah, we got
right.
it
The
pretty
number
close.
that,
Yeah.
right, because it's showing you an event horizon. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like there's an event horizon where when you get to this thing, you got another phenomenon going. The number that we got might not be the correct number. That might be the correct number,
Well,
but it's close
uh,
enough.
close enough. Well, I think that the more important thing. I mean, we could continue to go down that rabbit hole, and I'm sure that some of the things would not be, at all related, but just fun.
Fun.
And
This is yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah,
This is a yeah. Alice in Wonderland. We're in
yeah.
Wonderland now. You know?
But the important thing is, I think, just how it makes us feel, and I think I'm going to try it this week, and
Yeah.
maybe report back with you next week. And I should
Nice.
I should sign off. I've kept you long enough, Roy, and I really appreciate you popping in, and always
Yeah.
fun to talk with you. Yeah.
All right. Well, great. And I don't see everybody's comments, but just thank you for everyone tuning in and just
Oh,
taking
you
this
can go to
little
YouTube or
journey.
go to YouTube and
I
respond
will.
back to them, or Facebook even.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Great. All
Bye.
right.
Thanks again,
Yes.
Roy. You're great. Bye.
Until next time.